Today on the official Marvel podcast, we are joined by the creative team behind the new comic series Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, writer Chip Zdarsky, and artist Luca Maresca.
It tees up Armageddon in a huge way without giving anything away. Like by the end of this series, you'll be like, oh, okay, all right, now I get what's happening here.
Plus, we're shining a spotlight on Marvel Studios' Director of Franchise and Marketing, Kristy Amornkul.
Growing up, the dream was always to work for Disney one day, and so that has been another icing on the cake of being part of Marvel Studios.
And to celebrate the Season 2 premiere of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, we are taking a deep dive look into the comic history of one of Daredevil's deadliest foes, Bullseye.
I'm Sade Spence.
I'm Langston Belton.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
This summer, writer Chip Zdarsky and rising artists Frank Alpizar and Delio Diaz are set to forever change how the world sees Earth's mightiest heroes. And while Avengers Armageddon isn't set to launch until June, we won't have to wait that long to get a taste of what's to come.
Chip's been laying the groundwork for this massive summer blockbuster event across comics like Captain America and more recently, Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon. With artist Luca Maresca, Weapons of Armageddon serves not only as a prelude to Armageddon, but as a defining chapter in the long history of Wolverine comics.
I sat down with Chip and Luca to learn what's in store for Wolverine and what readers can expect on the road to Armageddon. All right, y'all, I'm hanging out with the creative team behind Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon, writer Chip Zdarsky and artist Luca Maresca. How are you, my friends?
Fine. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, to start us off, Chip, can you please set the stage for Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon? Where do we find Wolverine at the beginning of this limited series?
Well, he's in New Orleans, as we've seen in Uncanny X-Men. He's having some nightmares, as Wolverine is known to do. And as a result of those nightmares, he gets taken on a bit of a journey to his past and the Super Soldier Weapon X projects.
Nice. There's a lot of parts of the Marvel Universe that this story touches. So, Luca, you have said two of your favorite characters to draw are Spider-Man and Wolverine. So let's talk about it. What is it about Wolverine that you love drawing specifically?
Wolverine
is one of the most fun characters to draw because basically his physicality and his expressivity always go hand in hand with his very nature, and he's always living on the edge. He can explode with violence on a moment's notice. And I like drawing him when he unleashes his power, and especially when those claws come out, is always exhilarating. And most interesting part for me is when he's calm, though, quieter moments, I guess. Because in those moments, like his turmoil and his humanity come to the surface, and it's there that the character becomes deep and gratifying and satisfying to draw.
So how did y'all collaborate? And talk a little bit about the collaborative process, establishing the visual tone and style for the series combined with the storytelling.
Comics is interesting because a lot of it is almost like being in an arranged marriage, because you don't necessarily know who you're going to be working with, and you get paired up and you hope it works out. So I was delighted when our editor Will Moss showed me Luca's portfolio, because his work is gorgeous and it's so filled with emotion and propulsive, and there's amazing gestures to it that I could immediately kind of visualize his Wolverine in action. And so it was super exciting for me to get to work with him. I don't know how Luca feels about working with me because I give a lot of notes. I'll let Luca answer that.
Well,
first of all, Chip is fantastic. And I also want to say hi to Will and Danny, because like they are our coordinators and they always keep us in line. And with Chip, whenever I have a doubt or something, a question, I can always rely on him because he's also an artist and he tells me his point of view, and he knows how to make a panel better. So it's a very direct process. We confront, there's a discussion, and we go from there. It's teamwork at its best, basically.
Nice. Luca, this book features, Chip mentioned it earlier, flashbacks to Wolverine's time in the Weapon X program. Did either of you draw inspiration from any classic Wolverine stories set during that period?
Wolverine Weapon X si ha praticamente...
Wolverine Weapon X is basically the Bible for comic book artists in general. So especially the work by Barry Windsor Smith, it's paramount for us artists. And it's basically the biggest, a huge source of inspiration, to the point that we even recreated some of his work, like some panels, some scenes, explicitly as an homage to him and his work. And me as a fan and as an artist, it was incredible to even think about working on something like this.
Yeah, and Luca did such a great job with those scenes, the ones that kind of took place during that Weapon X story. Obviously, I went back and reread Weapon X. I was just kind of blown away at how unbelievably accomplished it is. Like, it just stands on its own as just a really fascinating story in terms of the dialogue and the visuals. Like, Barry Windsor Smith was absolutely the best to ever do it. It's stunning. So that brought some pressure because we were actually, we're putting scenes kind of within Weapon X. At some point, everyone who writes Wolverine goes back to Weapon X. It's such a natural thing to do. But yeah, also very intimidating.
So we were talking about Weapon X, so that's Logan's past. Let's talk about the present with Weapons of Armageddon. So we're not going to spoil too much, but we can say that Logan is on the hunt for a mutant named Tyler in this book. So what can you tell us about Tyler and how this character is sort of crucial to propelling Wolverine into the story?
He's in a similar position to Wolverine back in his Weapon X days, except he's younger. He's like 18, 19. He's got kind of animalistic powers, and he's being experimented on by a company called Prime Warrior, who are trying to create more super soldiers. And they realize that they kind of had it right the first time with Logan. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're subjecting someone to all these experiments, they need to be a mutant with a healing factor. And so he's getting the kind of adamantium treatment, and he's on the run in this. So it's a bit of a race to save him. He was freed from captivity by David Colton, who is a Captain America character from my run. Because the Captain America characters, like the ones who have gone through the Steve Rogers kind of process, are also Weapon X's in their own way, right? Mm. Because they're still the result of procedures, though they tend to sign up for them versus the Weapon X crew.
Yeah, a little less voluntary.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Prime Warrior. They've teamed up with another super soldier very important to Wolverine, Nuke. What can you tell us about Nuke's role in regards to Prime Warrior?
Yeah, Nuke works for Prime Warrior because essentially he's a soldier for hire, and they've provided kind of a safe base for him. I think in this story, we wanted to really explore the idea of Nuke suffering at the hands of these kind of companies. Like, the process wasn't an easy one for him either. We just kind of discounted a bit because a lot of his appearances have him kind of as a bad guy and really intense. But there's trauma there, and this whole story bouncing around between the different characters who've had these procedures is all about the trauma kind of inflicted on them and how they each deal with that and how they overcome it. And Nuke becomes a very kind of central character as a result, even as the bad guy here. And also Luca draws the hell out of him.
I agree. Yeah. So Luca, please tell us a bit about how you put your own spin on Nuke in this story.
I studied basically the character as it was drawn by other artists to take inspiration. Mazzucchelli was my favorite artist to draw Nuke. And the most complicated thing, the most difficult thing to do was to draw the American flag on his face in a way that would make sense, that would not appear as weird or something like that.
Chip, Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon is a prelude to your summer blockbuster event, Armageddon. And you mentioned that this series features characters from your Captain America run. So how does this series set the stage for what's coming for the broader Marvel U?
Yeah, so it's weird because it is kind of it's a sequel to my first arc of Captain America in a sense, because we introduced in the past the character David Colton, this new Captain America from post 9/11 era, before Steve came out of the ice. And at the end of that arc, we kind of leave that character and you don't really know what's happened to him. So this is us catching up to him in modern period. So anyone who is reading Captain America should definitely check this out to see where David Colton ended up. But yeah, it tees up Armageddon in a huge way without giving anything away. Like by the end of this series, you'll be like, oh, okay, all right, now I get what's happening here, why these characters are involved. And, especially Wolverine, because I really wanted him to feel like he has a good, solid part in Armageddon. And this miniseries with Luca was a great way to kind of help tee that up.
Nice. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. Be sure to pick up Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon at your local comic book shop today. Kristy Amornkul is the director of franchise and marketing at Marvel Studios. Throughout her career as a marketing leader, she has focused on connecting with fans across the entertainment landscape. She's even helped create immersive fan experiences at events like San Diego Comic-Con.
I connected with Kristy to learn even more about her role and how she turned a childhood dream into a full-blown career. Check it out. I'm joined by the Director of Franchise and Marketing at Marvel, Kristy Amornkul. Thanks so much for chatting with us. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them what you do?
Sure. I am Kristy Amornkul. I'm the Director of Franchise at Marvel Studios. I like to think of franchise as sort of the bridge from Marvel Studios to all the other businesses and partners that work with our content. So it's usually our team that becomes sort of the ambassadors for all the content that we've created in the past and also are creating for the future. And we help other teams achieve their goals. If that's consumer products, it's making sure they know which figures are going to be relevant for the next film, or if it's parks, it's what costume characters and helping them get the reference. It's all kinds of things. And the other aspect of our job is also creating the Marvel booth at conventions. So at San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and D23, just like how we show up for fans. So that's another element and fun part of the job.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be at the helm of, honestly, one of the most important global brands and what, is really unique about working on Marvel as a brand?
I've been at Marvel for about 5 years. Coming here was amazing because it was already such a big brand and it was so beloved by so many people. And so working within the Walt Disney Company is another layer of just amazing dream come true because there are so many aspects to having a brand that's within this company that, allows you to do so many things that you never, as a kid in the burbs, never thought you'd be a part of, like helping to weigh in on attractions or interactive experiences and everything that, as a kid that loved going to Disneyland, that's all mind-blowing to me. It's just really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell us a little bit more about your connection to Marvel and Disney and, being a fan in your younger years?
So my introduction to Marvel was definitely X-Men, the animated series. It was what I watched after school, waited for all those episodes. My brother's like a really big comic nerd, so I was definitely exposed to the comic world via him. But I loved Disney, and my family went to Disneyland. Every year was like our special occasion vacation. So it was always something that I thought of as really special. And growing up, the dream was always to work for Disney one day. And so that has been another icing on the cake of being part of Marvel Studios.
And your love of Disney started early, and you also liked a lot of the X-Men. How would you say that really transitioned into you getting your start as the director of franchise and marketing at Marvel?
So I started, like, the main part of my career was working in integrated marketing at Warner Brothers. So it was just a whole hodgepodge of different types of series. And that was a great training ground because you did a little bit of everything. And that's sort of naturally, I didn't know it at the time, but that is also the way franchise works, is you're working with a bunch of people who have different priorities and different needs. And it's sort of learning their language and doing whatever you can to help provide them with the answers that they need.
Can you remember the first time you realized and learned that franchise was an actual job?
So I was always looking at other roles and other things that I could potentially do. And because Disney was the dream company, I was always looking at their job boards. And I saw franchise via looking at job descriptions. Like, once I saw franchise under studios, I thought, wow, this is such a dream, because, like, I loved working with showrunners and being close to production and creative, but also feel like my skill set is more marketing and problem solving and businessy things. That all somehow added up to being the right background for this job.
I mean, how exciting and how beautiful. Can you walk us through a typical day and what that looks like for you?
There's no typical day, but usually there's some amount of meetings. There's a lot of meetings with all of our various partners, since we work with so many different groups, running approvals, problem solving. And then on the event side, it might be meeting with our vendors, reviewing concepts. It's constantly changing, but I think that's what makes it fun and interesting.
What can you tell us about the process of creating events and experiences for fans?
Our lead on events, Mikey, he is definitely the creative mind. So he definitely is the one that brings sort of that lens to everything. So we kind of start with, what are our objectives for the year? Like, what titles are we pushing, or what is the thing that we want to focus on? And then I sort of will spitball ideas. Like, obviously, Doomsday is the big thing this year. So what is a way that we can bring that to life for fans? So that's kind of the fun part, is like dreaming the concept. And then we get into logistics. And so then we get into all those steps of working with vendors and all of that stuff.
Awesome. So curious, if you could do any other job at Marvel for a week, what would you choose?
I'm not qualified for this job. Brian Crosby, he's our Imagineering, sort of like our parks liaison. And so everything he works on just sounds so cool and so fun. Like, he's working on the cruise ships, and today he's in Disneyland Paris for like an immersive something. So that would definitely be my dream job.
Oh, absolutely. What other advice, Kristy, do you have for someone who would be interested in working on a team like yours?
So I think franchise is sort of one of those things where you could kind of start anywhere. Like, any of these places, if you're in consumer products, if you're in marketing, if you're in parks, events, all of these things sort of have a touchstone in franchise. And so I think it all can be leveraged, because the skill set of our team, I think, is being able to look at other groups and what their priorities are and sort of understand what they need and then translate that back to what we can provide. Experience isn't a linear path necessarily. And like I said, I didn't know I was going to end up in franchise, but because I did all these other things, the culmination of all those things made me the perfect fit for this job. So don't decide what the path is going to be before you see it. You kind of have to let the path tell you where you need to go and trust that you're going to end up in the right place.
Cool. And can you tell me also about any pinch me moments you had at your job?
There's so many. I mean, honestly, the D23 thing was kind of a pinch me moment because, again, just like growing up, going to Disneyland, it was a dream I didn't know I had. You know, I never thought I was going to work necessarily in the experiential space. It was something that just came along with this job and I had to do. And so I didn't realize how much I would like it and how fulfilling it would be. So that was a highlight in so many ways, because there are a lot of things that I think are pinch me moments when you look back at like 13-year-old you who wanted to get into the industry. And I remember being on my first set, going to my first premiere, meeting some actor. Like, those are all cool and amazing. And like, when I was 13, would have died. But then after you work in the industry for a while, like, that stuff, it becomes more part of like the job. So it's hard for me to think about them as pinch me moments, because I have to put myself in my 13-year-old mind to think of it that way, because now they're cool, but it's not quite the same. Pinch Me is more like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this thing that I never thought I would do, let alone be like this satisfied by.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it sounded incredible. Kristy, it was so great speaking with you today. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Well done, Sade. That last interview really hit the mark, wouldn't you say?
I sure would. And
you could also say that it was right on the money.
You could say that.
Definitely nailed it.
Uh-huh.
Struck the target, dead center.
Those are a lot of different ways of saying
Lester?
Yes,
Sade, that's right. Those are a lot of different ways of saying the name of one of Marvel Comics' deadliest villains, Bullseye.
Ah, Bullseye, the man who never misses. But I thought his real name was Benjamin Poindexter.
I mean, maybe? Bullseye's first appearance was in Marvel Comics Daredevil issue 131 from 1975, and since then he has used many aliases, including Benjamin Poindexter, Matt Hobson, Leonard McLean, and on multiple occasions, simply Lester.
So the villain's real name has never been confirmed. But one thing that has always hit the target is Bullseye's deadly accuracy with virtually any object. He does not possess superpowers.
Unless you count the brief period where he could physically sense the presence of Daredevil. Oh, or that time when his bones were laced with adamantium.
But much like the heroic marksman Hawkeye, he doesn't need powers. He has trained his body to an Olympic level of athleticism and honed his senses to achieve nearly unmatched accuracy with projectiles.
So basically, he throws real good.
Basically.
Comics readers were first introduced to Bullseye with a display of his power. Panels show a paper airplane flying above the city towards a specific window.
This is already impressive, considering how hard it is to fly a paper airplane accurately in windy conditions.
Yes, but what's even more impressive is that it was thrown hard enough to break through the window. Turns out, it's a ransom note. The unfolded airplane demands $100,000 or the guy reading it will be killed, and it is signed by Bullseye, complete with his signature mark of concentric circles.
Bullseye appears moments later, revealing himself to his target and demanding that he take the note seriously. The victim claims he doesn't have the money on him, so Bullseye kills him by taking a pen off the man's desk and throwing it through his neck. He paints a large bullseye over the body and the wall that it slumped lifelessly against. He also paints a warning reading, "This is an example to all who refuse to pay Bullseye."
Yeah, real subtle. I mean, Bullseye really leans into the theme. His costume features a mask with a large bullseye right in the middle of his forehead, and even his shoulder pauldrons are formed by white circles and dark lines. So his costume forms a bullseye if viewed from directly above. He also wears a utility belt containing throwing stars, small knives, and even playing cards, all deadly weapons in his hands.
Even though he never reveals his real name, Bullseye wants people to know who he is. Villains tend to commit crimes anonymously in order to, get away with it. But Bullseye wants to make a name for himself.
Yeah, he's a true heel, which explains his surprising decision to speak to the press.
Right. Craving publicity and seeing a way to make money from advertising himself as a skilled assassin, Bullseye gives an exclusive interview to a reporter for the Daily Bugle.
That means that most of what is known about Bullseye's origins comes from this first-hand personal account, which is most likely riddled with embellishments and inaccuracies.
Then again, it's all we have to go on, so here it goes.
According to his story, he was a Major League Baseball pitcher before becoming bored as an athlete, and then enlisted as an operative for the U.S. National Security Agency. During one of his first missions as a soldier, he was nearly killed by an enemy fighter. Out of ammo, Bullseye threw his gun at the soldier, impaling him with the bayonet. He then traveled to Africa to work as an assassin and perfect his use of weapons.
And perfect it he did. Bullseye's deadliest ability is to turn everything in his environment into a projectile. And here are just a few of the everyday items he has used to kill or incapacitate his opponents. It includes pens, paper clips, syringes, vases, an apple, a menu, rope, straws, hairbrushes. Honestly, too many to list.
Ugh, your boy must be really lethal in a convenience store.
Keep him away from the office supplies aisle at all costs, please.
Now, Bullseye is one of my personal favorite supervillains. One of my favorite things that he has ever done was the time that he knocked a guard out just using one of his teeth. He was able to spit the tooth into the guard's head, killing him instantly.
It even inspired a scene in Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
And I was just as excited watching it as I was reading it.
Bullseye's abilities make him an excellent foil for Matt Murdock, aka the superhero known as Daredevil. A villain with sharp eyes that can pinpoint a mark and deadly hands that always hit the target. That's going to be a major challenge for the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, the man without fear versus the man who never misses. It's a perfect matchup.
And that's pretty much how Bullseye sells it. Wanting to feed off of Daredevil's established fame, Bullseye lures him to the middle of a circus, where they fight their first battle in front of an audience. This arena provides a perfect display of both the hero and villain's abilities. Bullseye uses everything in his environment, including juggling pins, a lion tamer's whip, and even a human cannonball to overwhelm Murdock with a nonstop barrage of attacks. Meanwhile, Daredevil displays his deft acrobatics, performing flips and cartwheels in the main ring and high on the trapeze.
Now, Bullseye gets a few good shots in, but Daredevil doesn't let on that he's hurt. Eventually, Bullseye gets antsy, creates a massive diversion, and escapes, vowing to terrorize the city further.
Daredevil delivers Bullseye to the police later that night, so the Devil of Hell's Kitchen wins this round.
Daredevil and Bullseye's rivalry heats up over the years. At one point, a mysterious third party hires Bullseye to kill Daredevil's most notorious nemesis, Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. The Kingpin simply offers Bullseye more money to work for him instead, and Bullseye accepts the offer, becoming Kingpin's personal assassin. This partnership lasts for a time until Daredevil manages to once again put the deadly marksman behind bars, leading to one of Bullseye's most iconic and famous comic book moments in Daredevil issue number 181 from 1982.
While in prison, Bullseye learns that Kingpin has replaced him with another hired assassin, a woman named Elektra Nachos. Elektra has trained as a ninja and has incredible skills in acrobatics and hand-to-hand combat that gives even Daredevil a run for his money. It's also revealed that Elektra and Matt Murdock dated in the past and that he still has feelings for her. Bullseye stages an escape, and even though he is handcuffed, he manages to spit a single pill from his mouth into the eye of a guard, and from there orchestrates a full prison break by stealing the guard's weapons and holding them hostage until he can flee in a helicopter.
After winning his freedom, Bullseye sets his sights on revenge. He comes dangerously close to deducing that Matt Murdock and Daredevil are the same person, but eventually dismisses the theory, concluding that a blind man could not possibly fight as well as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
So Bullseye tracks down Elektra. Their fight is a close match, with both assassins' full prowess on display. Bullseye gains the upper hand when he throws an ace of spades into Elektra's neck, cutting her. While she's down, he retrieves one of Elektra's signature three-pronged scythes and stabs her in the heart with it.
Daredevil learns of Elektra's death and lures Bullseye into a fight that takes them both high above the city streets. Bullseye wields Elektra's size as a symbolic way to make things not only physically painful for Daredevil, but emotionally painful as well.
Their fight leads to a moment where both of the costume contenders are balancing precariously on a telephone wire. Bullseye slips, but Daredevil catches his wrist at the last moment. Bullseye shouts no, not wanting to be saved by his enemy. And up to this point, Daredevil has operated as a hero who never resorts to lethal means in order to stop his foes. However, enraged by his former lover's death, he obliges Bullseye's request and lets him fall.
Now, one thing that is interesting about the comic where Bullseye kills Elektra is that it is narrated from the villain's perspective. The reader follows Bullseye's perspective to find that he survived the fall, and the last few pages reveal that his spine is shattered. In his own words, he can't feel his arms or legs, and he can't even talk, but he can hate, and that will be enough. He vows from his hospital bed that he will somehow put himself back together and come for Daredevil again.
Although Bullseye started out as a low-level extortionist with a gimmick, he has since risen in notoriety. He has killed many notable Marvel characters, including another of Matt Murdock's girlfriends, Karen Page. He has proven that he can punch way above his weight class, killing the dark sorceress Morgan Le Fay, and even taking down the Asgardian champion Heimdall.
Like many Marvel villains, Bullseye has had the occasional turn playing the hero, emphasis on the word playing. At one point, Matt Murdock leaves New York for a time, and during his absence, Bullseye dresses up as Daredevil in order to rob the rich and supposedly give to the poor. Murdock later reappears wearing Bullseye's costume and beats him to reclaim his title as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
And he can be a team player. Bullseye has been a member of the Thunderbolts, a group of reformed criminals, anti-heroes, and former villains that get sent out on dangerous missions to protect the public. During his time on this morally gray team, he helped stop an invasion of shape-shifting aliens known as Skrulls. To his credit, during this battle, he has the opportunity to kill both Daredevil and Spider-Man at the same time with a rocket launcher. But instead, he turns the weapon against one of the Skrull leaders.
Now, before you label him a hero for this single decision, it's also worth noting that during his time as a Thunderbolt, he also uses his position on the team to inflict mayhem, injure his fellow teammates, and carry out a few assassinations.
Later, he's recruited to yet another super team, the Dark Avengers. He takes both the costume and codename of Hawkeye, a fitting moniker given his skill set, but he does not take on the real Hawkeye sense of morality and justice. He's extremely efficient at taking out several of the Dark Avengers' targets, but he has no qualms about collateral damage, and so he kills over 100 innocent bystanders with his ruthless tactics.
Yeah, I mean, he threw a woman out of one of those helicopters he loves so much. So, sure, it is very hard to call him a good guy, but whether you call him Lester, Ben, or Bullseye, we think you'll agree that this is one Marvel villain who is always on point. The release of Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon has us thinking about another story in the world of X-Men. Recently, we asked writer Sam Humphries to share one of his all-time favorite Marvel comics. He recommended 1987's Fantastic Four versus the X-Men, written by Chris Claremont and penciled by John Bogdanov. In this multi-issue series, our heroes must come together to save a mutant in need. Here's Sam on how the comic has influenced the way that he tells stories.
Fantastic Four versus the X-Men was a 4-issue miniseries, and I really, really like this book because of how emotional it is for all the characters. And I always return that one just to help ground myself in the fact that if I'm not telling a story that's emotional for the characters, you limit the relatability. And if you're not telling a story about emotions, then like, really, what are you doing?
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we're joined by Marvel Comics editor Nick Lowe and writers Charles Soule, Al Ewing, and Joe Kelly to discuss their latest comic crossover event, Amazing Spider-Man Venom Death Spiral.
Looking at Peter and Mary Jane and Eddie as this very dysfunctional family, along with the symbiotes. I mean, that really is this very fascinating chart when you start laying them all down and going, who cares about who hates who, etc. They're just messed up family. So family became the theme that we wanted to exploit with this serial killer.
Until then, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen, and why not drop a comment and give us those 5 stars?
This episode of the official Marvel podcast was hosted by Langston Velton and me, Sade Spence.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores, with additional writing by Luis Gaudio.
Special thanks to John Maria Adamo.
Brad Barton is our senior manager of audio production and development, and our production manager is Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Emma Munger.
Our theme music is by Ida Akbal.
Executive produced by Larissa Rosen.
Thank you for listening. Read more comics, and we will see you next time.
Bye.